I was in Mendota, Illinois for about 7 years. Church I served is located in the middle of downtown. This town is known for her sweet corn festival. Every year, they have this massive parade. And this town of 7,000 was packed every year with people from everywhere. People were packed like a sardine. On a parade day, which usually was on Sunday after church, and we wanted to be, as a congregation, we wanted to be part of the audience, and so we would like to sit by our church on our property to see the parade. But every year, somebody from somewhere would come before we did. Some of them even came day before and somehow carved an area or two with blankets, tarps, or even some picnic chairs. And so we would be almost like booted out of our space. But that's not the important part of the story. The important part of the story is the parade. How people were attracted to this massive parade in a small town. And often, especially during election years, politicians of all stripes would come to this parade. They would walk with big banners, with their names in big letters. They would wave at people. They would throw candies at people. And in some places they will stop and even shake hands with people. It is almost like show of power. It's almost like saying to the audience, I need your vote. I need your vote. Today's Palm Sunday parade is a different one. This parade came through Jerusalem, and Jesus was at the center of this Palm Sunday. In other words, he was almost like the parade grand marshal. People from small towns, small villages, who had heard about him or somehow was blessed by his ministry came to see him. And I'm sure others came along to see what was going on, join the excitement. But this parade, this Palm Sunday, was different, comparatively different than what Romans would have. Romans, after their powerful trip somewhere and conquered a kingdom, or, slaughtered their enemies, they would return home with pride. Soldiers marching, chariots, caravans behind them. And then they would have this subjugated enemies in chain. And then they would have this, war spoil. So it was very grand entrance, exuding and exhibiting the power of Rome. This Palm Sunday could have been a violent, could have easily exploded into violence. Because, people who were there knew Jesus, loved Jesus, and they were not very happy with Rome. And so the author of our Lenten study book, Matt, says that when Jesus entered into Jerusalem, the city was a powder keg, waiting to ignite. Yeah. Because I'm sure the Pharisees, whom Jesus butted with them often, they were there. I'm sure they were not amused. And of course, Pilate was also there. I'm sure he was watching intently what was going on. But Jesus commanded this Palm Sunday. There was unity there. There was peace there. There was no swords flying all over. This Palm Sunday was not just another momentous occasion for people to come out and cheer somebody. But this Palm Sunday was also a defining moment for people, defining their destiny. And so, what do you hear? What kind of voices do you hear in this text, or even around you? Now, two prophets in the Old Testament have spoken clearly about this very day. And so let me read to you to refresh your mind. Isaiah chapter 62, verse 11. Indeed, the Lord has proclaimed to the end of the world. Say to the daughter of Zion, surely your salvation is coming. Behold, his reward is with him, and his work before him. Second text from Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9. Rejoice greatly, O daughters of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just as having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey, a colt, a foal of a donkey. This Palm Sunday is about our salvation. There is no greater purpose but our salvation. In the text, we hear another voice, another very powerful voice. Hosanna. It is an old Hebrew word meaning, please save us. It is a cry for help. I'm sure the crowd is simply affirming what Jesus had already done in their lives. And others have come along to see this folk hero. But those who were blessed shouted with more vigor, Hosanna, please save us. You are our only hope. I'm sure their cry may have implicated their disgust against the Roman power, and now crying for help from the Messiah who can truly transform their lives. And Jesus did not come to Jerusalem like Rome would come, but came with humility to serve the needs of the people. Sisters and brothers, we live in a very difficult time. We've been asked to stay home. And I think we all are trying our best. So I can say coronavirus has destabilized our life as we knew. Fear has wrapped us, causing us to panic and be anxious. In times like this, people are turning to God. People are learning how to pray on their own. They're getting reacquainted with their Bible and reading passages every day, grounding their life in the Word. It is anchoring them. Often we Christians think that what we do on Sunday morning at church is time of worship, something external that we do in the building. But I think worship is more than that. Worship is not simply coming to a building to feel the presence of God. But worship is also connecting with God wherever you are and allowing the breath of God live in you so that you can also breathe God into the world. There are many voices around us, and they are also crying to find Jesus with flesh on. They are also seeking for spirituality. Maybe they are also saying, Hosanna, Jesus, save us. Because they also want to anchor their life in this time. What we see Jesus doing in this Palm Sunday is the humility. Philippians text talks about Jesus emptied himself to become one of us. And he truly exemplifies that in the Palm Sunday march, riding not on a stallion, but on a colt, bringing his humility to the world. He comes to us as a servant, and servanthood is the path to true success for all of us. Some of the greatest people who ever lived have viewed themselves as servants, and they have truly blessed our world. There was an article in the Philadelphia Inquirer sometimes back about a 14-year-old Jewish girl at the end of World War II who was discovered lost, alone, and buried alive, lying on the platform of an abandoned railway station. It was the day the Russian army liberated the Nazi-controlled labor camp where she was held captive. Though she was free, she was half-starved and too exhausted to pick herself up off the ground. She thought she would die there. But then a young priest came beside her. He offered her tea, 2 slices of bread, and some cheese. "Where do you want to go?" he asked her. "Krakow," she managed to reply. "I'm going there too," he said. "Let me help you up." He tried to lift Edith to her feet, but she collapsed. So she picked her up and literally carried her 2 miles to the train station to Krakow. "What is your name?" he asked. "Edith Zierer," she replied. "Oh, my name is Carol," replied her rescuer. When they arrived at Krakow, they were separated and they never saw each other again until the year 2000. In Jerusalem, at the Holocaust Memorial, Edith, with tears in her eyes, clasped the hands of the Polish priest named Karol, whom the world grew to know as Pope John Paul II. the Pope, had performed a quiet act of service, of lifting up and carrying this poor Holocaust survivor, and had forgotten it. But Edith didn't. Before the whole world, she declared, "He came like an angel out of nowhere and gave me life. He saved me. There is no other word for it. It's thanks to him I'm here today." Then Edith quoted a verse from Talmud, which says, "To save one life is to save the world." Sometimes when we think of Pope, we associate him with the pomp and circumstance of his lofty office. We forget that many of the modern popes, including the current one, have had the heart of a servant. All greatness grows out of humility and service. And that is what we see Jesus doing. He comes with humility to usher God's salvation for all of us. And so this Palm Sunday, even when you are confined to your apartment, house, condo, wherever it is, around you might be voices of all kinds. But I want you to hear the voices of people on that first Palm Sunday. Jesus, save us. And you're right. He comes to save you and me, to give us another life, but life that is transformed by his love. May that be so for all of us.